So welcome everybody. Quick one before I forget, because already the Zoom is full. Kindly not direct your colleagues, your friends to the Facebook page. Maybe Richard, you could just share it here in the chat so everybody can share widely, those people who are queuing, because the Zoom is already full as of now. And on that note, I will move into introducing the topic of today, which definitely we all know, and that's why we are here, to be able to learn a bit about the HR strategic reporting. We will also talk a bit about the HR report before we move to what all about strategic HR reporting. And welcome everybody. Continue telling us from where you are. You're logging in from. I can see most people are logging in from Nairobi. Others are mentioning their companies. Maybe you could give us a location of the company so we are able to know which location is that, or we are able to locate you.
Damaris.
We know the weather. We have said it's very cold where I am. So karibuni everybody. To straight to the meat of it. And before I move to that, allow me to quickly introduce the panelists who are already going to help us understand the topic of today. And before I move into the panelists, I want to share a bit of a screen here so we can all move together in understanding how we start here. So we are going to run from this moment about 10 minutes now. Kindly, the people who are saying open the Zoom, and we have already opened the Zoom right there.
Yeah, maybe Damaris, you can ask Coach Richard to share the Facebook link in the other groups, because that's where most people are going to be in the other groups.
Yes, sure. We can actually all do that. So Richie, when you share it here on the chat, we can share with our colleagues. Okay. Just drop it here, then we can all do that. So thanks for that, Mathangani Muya. Allow me just to share something right here. So quickly, I'll move into introducing my panel. And before I do that, I will introduce myself first for those who probably do not know who Damaris is. And Damaris, I'm really excited to be the one hosting this on the Blue Concepts Africa. And we have having this for April as a series of very critical topics that we consider as important skills for the profession of HR. And we were happy that we did the one for last week. That is on Saturday. They're all running on Saturdays. That was on job evaluation. As you missed that one, you can feel free and find it on Facebook, because we also stream live there. Today, we are diving into HR strategic reporting, and we all sat here with a very able panelists to help us dissect that. And definitely happy to have you on board on that. I don't know, Rich, whether you're able to find people who are already making noise for us.
I'm looking for them.
Yes, you can put it on speaker view, they'll come on top there. Okay, so allow me just to swift a bit on this. So we move to the introduction. Kindly mute yourself. Kindly mute yourself, even as Richie is trying to find it. Okay, thank you. So maybe we just go straight to introducing the panelists. It's a bit quiet now. Thank you for that. So Damaris here is the learning and development expert. Definitely, I like telling people that my profession, of course, in the background is human resource management. And I have a big bias in human resource, in learning aspect and organization development, where I've spent over 14 years of experience in helping organizations and people to be able to figure out challenges within the working space so they can be able to achieve the results and outcomes they're looking for. And I do this through many various programs and platforms, and leading in my forte is, I just like saying it, like people also like telling me, is championing for building of high performance cultures within the organization, because I believe strongly if you can get the culture right in the workplace, and things become so easy for everyone, including the bottom lines that we keep on chasing and very critical in reporting. And that's we also are very, enthused in reporting on them as human resource as well. And there are many other programs besides culture transformation. I also am a champion on organization development, being able to create effective structures for organization, looking into design and structures as well as the health of the organization. Currently, I work for Blue Concepts Africa, where I support as the lead strategist on the same. I've been lucky to partner with many organizations in the government and private sector. I've worked with many multinationals beyond East Africa, and the globe per se. I want to ask that you may able me to introduce the first panelist who is going to help us dissect in the agile element of the HR reporting, who is none other than Brian Ronald, an HR analyst, not so far away from HR, even though it is an MBA finance. Welcome, Rono. You can quickly introduce yourself, probably in a minute or less.
Thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate all who have joined today, and I want to say good morning to everyone. My name is Ron O'Brien. I'm a HR analyst by profession, and I work at Equity Bank, that's in Upper Hill. Thank you so much, and I'm glad to be part of this discussion.
Welcome, Rono. We are lucky and privileged to have you in this session, so you can help us dissect and understand some aspects of our reports. Thanks for joining. So I want to move quickly and introduce the next speaker. Not so strange or foreigner in the world of HR, very popular in the space of human resource. Welcome, Mathangani Muya. Probably just take a few seconds to introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. It's like my great pleasure to be here today so that we can be able to share and learn. I am a HR specialist, a strategist. It's over 25 years and about 10 years in consultancy. Now focus a lot on career and leadership coaching. I'm also an award-winning HR, and I'm doing that and providing services and making people get the best out of themselves and helping organizations make the best out of people by providing people solutions. And I'm the MD of Pristine Management Solutions. It is a hub for leadership and HR solutions.
Good. Thank you very much, Mathangani. Welcome. We are happy to have you today. I know you're very passionate about how we report our data sources, especially our use of data in HR, something that we definitely have to input moving forward. On that note, I want to move to the next speaker. Richard, are you unable to mute that one? I think we have a very young participant.
Trying to mute a young one.
Yeah, it's going to be very agile. So we have Lucy Mandago, a CHRP professional in HR, has got some number of years in this profession, and we are happy to have him because, as you will see at some point, when it comes to HR reporting, they are quite varied, different, and if there is somebody else who's going to help us really look into this spectrum of HR reports, is none other than CHRP Lucy. So karibu sana, Lucy, maybe you could just say a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thank you, Damaris, and good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here. As you've heard, my name is Lucy Mandago. I'm the group head of HR in CPF Financial Services, and CPF is a group of companies. That's why I'm a group head of HR. We have a company on insurance, we have one in ICT, we have another one in properties. So should you need any of those services, I'm here to help. But for today, my actually key focus is HR in general, but I do a lot of mentorship and career coaching on the side. So I'm happy to be here today. I know HR reporting is such a tall order to all of us. Sometimes we get poked up in what do we report, what do we not report, but we're here to learn and share knowledge. And we are not a marking scheme. We are here to give you what it is and you add on to what you know already. So I'm looking forward for a really productive session. Thank you.
Thanks as well, Lucy. We are as well looking forward for this conversation on HR and looking forward as well to the input that you are going to, of course, bring on the table on the same. As we move forward on this discussion, I am going to be your moderator for this session. Of course, yours truly, Damaris Ndungwa. There are my titles, just as I mentioned them, and off we go. And just to be so sure, yes, Masi Chumo, I got it. I hope you muted yourself. So I just want probably to start with from your corner, Lucy. And so we start the foundation at some point in this discussion. You can actually help us sort of dive in by helping us understand what exactly does an HR report constitute of. And if you can do as a justice, you can as well add definition or understanding of what exactly is an HR report when we're talking it in this perspective. Madam Lucy, you can just kick us off on that.
Okay, thank you, Damaris. And I'll go straight to your question and what does a HR report entail? Before I do that, I would like to bring out the fact that before you do any reports, regardless whether it's a finance report, HR report, you must know why are you doing the report? What are you reporting on? And who are you reporting to? Because it depends on who are you reporting to, why are you reporting, and that is what it brings direction in your reporting. And what HR actually reports is everything about HR. We report on talent, we report on levers, we report on capacity building, we report on recruitment, we report on engagement, and all these things that happens in HR. So why do we need to report is because we need to give information. We do our reports for information, we do our reports for discussion. Maybe there's an aspect on HR issue that needs to be discussed. Maybe it could be at the senior management level or at the board level. So you have to report on that particular item for discussion. And also, we do this, the strategic HR reports now comes in here where there's a decision that needs to be made, there's a resolution that needs to be made. So what we report in HR is all aspects of the HR, but we must always bear in mind that what we report has to be measured. What you can measure is what you can report. Otherwise, if you are reporting something you cannot measure, then it becomes so difficult for you to show the impact of that report or of that issue you're reporting on the business. And therefore, even as we plan on doing the HR reporting, we must also ensure that our HR issues are in the strategic plan of the company. That is where now you get a whole direction of how you have to report. In many organizations today, maybe not all, they have HR as a pillar. And every time you're reporting, you must always report in conjunction to what is in the strategic plan. So that now if you're talking about, for example, engagement, and you're saying our engagement level is at 90, for example, so what? So it's not just about reporting and saying we have an engagement of 90%, so we are doing good, and you expect everyone to be happy. It's not always that. If it's for information, well and good. But if it's for decision making, then you have to really show if it's at 90. So it impacts on what? It impacts on so many things like the revenue, the retention rate, and also how the business is growing in terms of the growth generally, because you have a very engaged employee. So those are the aspects we report. It depends on an institution, but those elements of capacity building is common, recruitment is common, talent, where you say the staff establishment in Q1 is this much, it's 100. Next time you're saying it's 120, so what? I mean, if it's had increased, what does that mean for HR, for example? So all these things have to get to be reported, but there has to be an impact going forward. Yeah.
Oh, that's quite elaborate.
And before I stop, Damaris, allow me to just point out what a report should have. I mean, yes, you have, and you must always note and bear in mind that you must have a template when you are reporting, so that you're not just doing sporadic reports. Today you are using this template, tomorrow it's another one. You have to have a specific template where you are doing your reports. So that's an agreement. You can agree with your senior management or even the board on what kind of template do you need, because then you are able to follow up. Otherwise, you'll find that HR reports for a long time, or even many people are struggling. You look at the finance report and the HR reports, and it's not enticing. It doesn't come out sweet as the finance. We all know that finance has the numbers and all that, but also HR, because we are carrying a lot of things, it should look as enticing and as sweet to listen to as the other reports. So our reports should have an introduction where it's saying, what are you talking about? What is the report all about? It should have an executive summary, and that's where you have all the details of your report summarized, not like you giving at length. You're just picking points form for everything that is within the report, so that at a glance, when I look at the report, I know, oh, it entails this. And if I interested in talent, I shall be able to go straight to the details on talent. And then the next, can someone mute? Richard, can you have mute? Okay. Thank you. And then after that executive summary, there comes the details, where you're giving now all the details that you need to give in terms of if it's talent, it has all the details. And then finally, you have to have annexures or attachments to support whatever you're doing, so that anyone who wants to see more information on that, there are attachments in it, and your report is complete. So that makes a report that is so strategic in nature, that goes to either the senior management or the board. But for the rest of it, we are doing it to managers. I mean, you don't have to give all this information, because you're reporting that particular thing that is within the managers to know. Maybe things like absenteeism, leave, those few things that needs to be within the level of managers. But if you are doing it at a higher level, that's how the report should look like. Thank you, Damaris.
Oh, thanks. That's quite elaborate on the structure. And you just spoke about something that got me a bit interested. A strategic report, and you've outlined a bit of the elements that it needs to constitute, and a bit, maybe you could also differentiate for us what exactly is the difference when you talk about the traditional report of HR and the strategic report of HR. And this one, I will also pull in Mathangani to add on before I come to Ron on something else. Lucy, you can go ahead on, but
okay. The traditional reports, like I said earlier on, Damaris, is where you're saying during the quarter under review, let me just put it that way, we trained 100 staff. And these were the courses that were done. This was the cost. End of story. You go again to staff establishment. You were saying during this quarter, we had an increase of staff by like 2%. And therefore, we moved from maybe 200 to 205 or 3. And then that's the end of story. We have this number of gender. We have 50 employees male. We have another 60 female. And therefore, that is the composition of the staffing. And then you go ahead and say maybe we recruited 10 staff during the quarter, and the cost of recruitment was this much. End of story. That is purely a traditional report. However, when you get to the strategic report now, you are giving that this quarter last quarter we had 200 employees. This quarter we are having 240 employees. So this means the increase in there would be an increase in staff emoluments in terms of salaries. There would be requirements in terms of space. Maybe you're requesting for more funds, office space, or working tools, and therefore you're saying this increase was necessary. Gives impacts on the following. We need more laptops, we need more space, we need more this. And this increase is because the business has increased. We are now doing 1, 2, 3, which required additional staff to take the business to the next level. And therefore, this additional staff, the company is going to make this much. So you give a whole picture of how will this additional staff impact on the business. It's not just about saying, okay, we've grown, we are 240. So yes, well done, we are many. Why are we many? Why are we hiring more staff? Why are we incurring a cost? That should have an impact on the business. And in fact, what makes sense actually to the executive team and even the board is how much are these staff going to generate in terms of revenue to the company. I think that's the bottom line for every business. We bring in people not just to sit, but to impact on the business in terms of revenue and service delivery. So if you are able to show that now you're being strategic, as opposed to saying we have, so you'll be asked, so if you are 240, so what? You should be able to give all that dimension. If you need more, why do you need more space? Why did you recruit? And many a times you will go to finance and they're asking you, no, why did you need to recruit? So you should be able to, as an HR person, say, in our strategic plan, for example, we needed to add 2 more staff to carry on with this particular aspect of the strategy so as to bring in more revenue by this percentage. You should be able to give that to the company and no one will query because you have your facts right. So that's what makes the difference between the traditional report and the strategic report.
Oh, thanks very much. Clear. Looks very strategic reports are very aligned to the strategy of the organization. It speaks to the big picture of that institution, getting clearly from what you're saying. And I'm curious actually to understand, because here we have quite a number of individuals working in different organizations and others on Facebook, but I don't want to assume everybody works in an organization where there's this robust strategy with strategic goals and objectives. What would happen in a case where maybe we're not even aware of where the organization really is working towards, or neither do we or are aware of the strategic plan, if there is, especially for the case of small business out there or SMEs out there. How do we treat this? And I want to throw this to Rono. I don't know whether you're still there. Maybe you could just shed some light on an aspect from where you stand. How would they look at this? As Mathangani, you'd add as well.
Just come again, sorry.
In a case where there is no, because strategic HR reporting is more about the strategy of the organization and alignment of all these things you're doing towards that. I have to speak to that. In the incidents of we don't have one, or maybe it's not clear case for small and medium businesses or enterprises, how would they approach that?
Thank you so much. So one factor that has to be considered is the yearly objectives. If the company does not have either a short-term to a long-term strategy, you can use the yearly objectives that's usually set at the ExCo level, and which is now cascaded down. So that can be used as a measure to just set precedents for the entire team. So the performance objectives for that specific year will act as a guide in preparing your strategic reports for HR.
Thanks for that. So some direction. What I hear is we look for some direction because it's always that big picture or interest you're working towards, and then we align reporting into that. Mathangani, I don't know whether you want to add something on that before I move to the next kind of a discussion.
Just an off topic.
Yes.
I think we seem to have full capacity, so I think other members are requesting because it's at 100 and members are being left out. So
it's streaming on Facebook, and we have shared the link to Facebook.
Okay.
Let me recopy it.
I have shared it. So the Facebook.
Yes. You can recopy again in the chat, so those who want to see it, they can see it afresh.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Ronan. Mathangani Muya, your perspective on where strategy per se doesn't exist.
Well, as Rono has said, one, there is no organization that does not have what they do, how they do it, and their targets, irrespective of the size, whether it's a small kiosk. But let's assume we are all working in organizations in as much as they are called SMEs or MSEs, they are actually people who are churning out 20 million, 30, 50, 100 million. So if you find yourself in such a situation, the first thing is try to understand where the management focus is on in terms of what they want to achieve. So as a HR, this is where you start acting strategic. You have to feel the vibe of the organization. There has to be issues that keep on coming up. What are the challenges you get from management? Maybe it is business growth. Maybe it is the skills people are not performing as they are required. Maybe they don't have the resources. And you can pick that from the employees themselves. So you can start from that premises of, first of all, getting into what you can call the mix of the organization. And this creates for you an opportunity to make your presence by identifying and then preparing proposals or reports, which should be seen to be addressing those challenges and providing solutions. Instead of sitting back and saying, well, this organization, I don't understand even how they recruit, or they have no systems, or they have no salary structure, or the customer service is terrible, people are always complaining, because some of us are working in these places. Then you can be able to provide guidance by preparing your own, where you feel, suppose we did it in this manner. And in that way, you will be creating now a strategy and also strategies which at least will be addressing what the business wants. Because most of the people we work with, I mean, these are business people. I mean, somebody working and they are making their 100 million, 200 million in a month. It means they know business. They are entrepreneurs. So your work is to set the management systems for them. So you need to get to know the business itself, talk to the drivers of the business. You discover most of the time the boss or one of the associates or one of the directors is like the business development, but they're always complaining about staff turnover, I'm not getting the right people. Then suppose you went and said, I want us to start having a talent or a recruitment process that will be able to attract us. So we are going to build our internal capacity. That already becomes a strategy. And you start becoming part of the business. If they want growth, you also become a questioning type. Ask, so how do we grow this? You want us to start another branch, you want us to reach out to XYZ region. How are we going to do this? We'll need people. And therefore, from there, now you start your own strategy. This is how I'm going to make sure you have the right people in this region. This is how I'm going to recruit. In the process, you say, well, the person who is recruited is from this region. We have to transfer them from Nairobi, Nakuru, all the way to Kisumu. What does that mean? We need a policy to manage that. We need funds transfer. So this is how you start becoming embedded into the management system. But most important is that you have to know what are their targets, because they do have. There's no business that does not operate irrespective whether it's a petrol station, a service industry, a tire changer, a car parts, because these are the places, a small manufacturing center in Northlands, in Embakasi. I mean, they are producing millions, but here they're saying they don't have a strategy. They do. What they have not done, they have not shared it with you, and that is how you are struggling leading into them. So get them, get to know the challenges. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Muya. I think you've actually added so much flesh into understanding the difference, and for those people who consider the strategy unclear from where you sit. There you have it, and thanks for adding that. I would say from the drift right here is as much as we have to actually shape up and try to make our reports more strategic, make cases or build cases that make a lot of impact or sense for the big picture. And there are many ways we can do that depending on what aspects we want to measure within our context of work. So I just want to probably go in the chat and engage a bit and just ask the over, I think, 100 people here, what reports do you do? Because we all do reports in our places of work. You can just mention a few, so we have a grasp of what reports are you usually keen on reporting as we move on. So you can tell us from the chat what kind of reports that you do and what elements of those reports you consider important. So you always have to pull them in your specific report. So get in the chat and let's see what you have there as I move on to the next segment of the discussion. Mercy says it does payroll reports. Fantastic, good. That one usually comes fast all the time. I don't know why. Yeah, and for those who don't know how to look for the Facebook page, we've put the link. You just click on the link in the chat and you can as well share the link, so anybody who is missing out can actually go direct to Facebook. So there is payroll reports. What else do we do? Oh, diversity, inclusion, and equity reports. Thanks for that. That's Mercy. Mercy is trailblazing on this one. How about the rest? Do we do reports? And what kind of reports do we do? What elements or aspects of our reports we consider critical all the time when we put those reports on there? So as I wait for that, for the people who are still keying in the insights, Florence, attendance reports, yes, very critical. Presence is very good. We need to know who is here and doing what. Turnover, I like that. Again, from Mercy, I love the way you follow in this discussion. Lillian, yes, I do reports. Fantastic. One, tell us which one is that you do in your space. Monthly commission reports for sales. Tough. Yes, thanks for that, Grace. We'll actually give an example about that as we move on. Establishment reports, good. I think the reports are really coming in. And tell us a bit about what you consider as critical in those elements. I do interview reports and job evaluation. Recruitment reports, yes, here we go. And these are the elements actually Lucy and the rest of the panelists were talking about earlier on. So I want to change a bit the gears as we move to the next segment of this discussion and as you sense, we're moving from now just reporting to understanding a bit what is this call about strategicness of our reports, and how can we actually try to make our reporting a little bit strategic, because the essence is impact and success of the business in the way we report. So they've got to make a lot of sense. And this is critical for us to understand. So on that note, probably could just dissect a bit and understanding what is so strategic about strategic HR reports, and what are these strategic elements, or these elements we consider strategic for HR reports. And maybe Mathangani, you could just start us off as I bring and loop in the rest of the panelists. What is these elements that we consider as strategic in our HR report?
Okay, well, that's a good question, because at the end of the day, we started by asking what do we report and why are we reporting and to whom are we reporting. So if you are making a report that has a strategic impact, it must be addressing something in the business objective. Otherwise, if it's not part of that, as Lucy said, if you can't measure it, if it has no measure, then why are we reporting it? You say that for information, the recruited 10 people, but what is the next thing? So for it to be strategic, it must be addressing and showing an impact or a value addition, qualitative or quantitative. It must be picked from a pillar. If it's HR, we tend to focus so much either on the HR pillar, but we don't seem to relate it to the other pillars. So if you take for one example, let's go back to the example that maybe Lucy gave about staff recruitment. So is it really the recruitment that is the strategy or the strategic thing? No, it's business growth, it's revenue. It is either process efficiency. There must have been a reason why we needed to hire. So you have to relate it to the business. If it came from a certain department, one department, then you must pick it from there and say, in line with revenue growth projected by business development, sales, production, whichever area you are, then you say that we have now recruited or trained 10 people to improve on, if it's just a process efficiency, if it was for business growth, for revenue growth, you relate it to that and mention to it. That is how your report becomes strategic. Otherwise, when they just see it there in a nice PPT, because we are very good at PPT in HR, but then somebody will be asking, so what happened after that? Is there growth? So you have also to use data so that you can show their raise, and that is why finance beats us. That is always a 10% increase from the same period last year in June to May. Yeah, they're telling you we have done this, or so and so business has done it, or production has decreased inefficiencies, wastage, quality control. That's how they report. So HR, you must also be able to relate to that, because you are fitting into them. It's not because you're increasing salary by 500,000, because that's what we do. And then everybody seems to panic and they forget they made 10 million with your 10 people, you are paying 500,000. So the strategic report must be related to the business strategy. If you don't relate it, then you'll be seen like a cost center.
So approach, what you're saying, Mathangani, is the fact that our reports speak about some elements in HR, like recruitment, like turnover, like engagement, or even talent acquisition and all that, we need to go a notch higher and make them really speak to where we are pointing at as a business. And we must be able to give the data story around that, if I get you clearly. I don't know whether, Rono, you want to add something about what is so strategic about the HR report?
Maybe before Rono comes in, I can just give one example. For example, when all the time you find HR, what are we doing? Most of the time that we are recruiting. It keeps us very busy in certain organizations. But then when you are reporting about this recruitment, this talent acquisition or development, do you, apart from the sales manager or marketing manager or the production manager, say, I'm waiting, oh, we are not doing well because we are waiting, we're still waiting for this person. If you go to that person and tell them, what does this mean for you? They will tell you, since we lost this production manager, our production has gone down by 10%, or our quality assurance has dropped from, because they are very clear about some of those things. Then you'll be able to say, convince management that we are taking 3 months, 6 months to recruit, but I've gotten information here from production or from business development that revenue, the reach out to customers, the retention, the attraction, the visits, whatever measure, because you have to understand how do they do their business. They are very clear. If you go to sales and marketing, they have their own parameters. How many people did you visit? How many did you actually bring in, and all this? So if you have this information, then you can be able to convince the CEO, who somehow is wondering why everybody you are recommending for recruitment is earning 400,000 shillings into them. But production is telling me that we have actually lost about 0.001, which translates to 500,000. So this is how you are able to say. Then when you are reporting, you will be very clear and say, when we recruited so-and-so for Coast Region, we have seen progress. And what they do, they turn to the relevant departments. Oh, Rono, is that true? Oh yes, the new manager is doing wonderful. We have attained, we have increased. So you put it very clearly, systematically, that this quarter recruited, or we have not recruited, and this is the cost it is having on us. Increase, whichever way. So that is how you connect with the business, not only with the numbers. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I think there is a lot of integration definitely in the way we work, because we might have the process and understand it, but we don't have the source of the data. And there you have it. Mathangani, my colleague, actually got some very critical data in terms of measurement of the success of what we did that we need to include in our report to make it more strategic. Thanks for that, Muya. Rono, do you want to add something? Actually, before I move to a question that I want you to elaborate a bit for us.
Yes, I think where there's a bit of gap between HR and the strategic objectives of the company, at times we tend either not to understand what the strategy is. So I think to all who are in the HR space, I think it would be very good as you prepare your reports to first understand it from a strategic point of view. If the company is talking about we want to reduce our costs by 10%, from case example, let's say last year it was at 1 billion Kenya shillings, and we want to reduce it by 10%. So what exactly is the role of HR in doing that exactly? So you really have to understand, if you're talking about revenue growth by 30%, what is the role of HR in pushing the agenda for revenue growth? We are talking about we want to, let's say, push learning or training, or maybe reduce on our leave liability. Yes, leave liability is a cost to the company. So if you understand that your role as HR is to reduce the overall costs by 10%, first you have to understand what is your responsibility as HR. Which buttons can you push? So one of them could be the leave liability. So you encourage more people to go and leave. It could be on reducing probably on costs such as travel allowances. Yes, so you have to really understand what the strategy is before you start preparing your reports. And your reports should actually mirror the entire strategy of the company.
Oh, thanks for that, Rono. I think it alludes a lot to what Mathangani was saying very clearly, that we need to be very integrated in the way we seek that information on what we put in our reports. And the ISABA is agreeing very strongly with Rono on that one. So I want to change the gear to something different. I understand that Lucy, you're unable to use your mic. I don't know. For now, I'm not able to get you speaking, but I hope you get to sort it right away, and then we can engage you as we move on. So I want to change the gear, because we're entering the second segment of the discussion, now centered more on what a strategic report is all about. And we've spoken about the characteristics of a strategic report and what exactly entails it, what makes it more strategic, not really about elements, but the how, which has been explained so well by Mathangani Muya. And I want to request, if you have a question from this point, put it in the chat, because we will be picking that in 30 minutes also on how to move, on how to, add more objectivity to the things that you're looking for. So back to you, Mathangani, on something that I've picked a bit when you were talking, that now we are supposed to do this thing in a different way. And that comes with, like we say, when the game changes, a lot of things, including the rules and how we approach the game, also changes. Do we need to build capacity for ourselves as HR? And if we do, what kind of capacity are we looking at? What kind of skills or knowledge for us to be able to at least start finding it a little bit easier for us to prepare this kind of reports? I know we've seen the kind of reports that we will definitely have to continue, producing, but how do we continue making them more strategic, and what capacity do we need to build around this? You're mute. Maybe you may want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, yes, sorry. Thank you. That's an important perspective, because at the end of the day, what it determines is how we are able to drive the HR agenda, is how we communicate it, is how we present it, it's how we also understand. So the basics first is to understand what is strategy all about. So all this what we use strategy. Yeah, what do they mean? So one, learn the business language. Wherever you are, learn the business language they use there. They could be having their own, don't mind about the abbreviations and all, but it's a business language. When you hear finance say, this was return on investment at 10% from the previous year of 10% to this, how get to understand those things. Sometimes we see these things in statements. So that is very important. Do a lot of reading, and it is out there. There are all these things we find in Google, but the problem is that they are nice statements. There's more to them. So learn about the concepts, the principles, the applications, the implementation, the structures of strategic management or building a strategy. So the skills of making a strategy. That's very important. When you talk about communication, it's not only both the oral communication, which is very important, because if you cannot be able to use a language that is persuasive, if you cannot have that demeanor of expression that elicits more answers or questions from your audience, which is the management team, which is your colleagues, which is your workmates, which is your team. So that is very important. Some of us, with all due respect, we tend to become so informal in how we are actually communicating that it loses a seriousness. If we use this language, ile report yangu iko wapi? Mbona umeandika hivi? We use that. Say, what is this? What I would like you to put in the report. This is what. So you start either by growing yourself. When yours is criticized by the boss, ask them, what would you have liked me to write? How would you like it? Don't go grumbling, because that's what we do. Amekata, they have, we become negative. So learn from them and start looking. The other thing is, when you talk about communication, is the written communication. I know for a certain generation, they were lucky. They were taught communication in university. Some of us, those things, we came to hear about them later, but they became very common. But even still today, the issue of communication, written communication. So learn how to communicate in writing. The first thing we say is the mantra of communication is you have to say, why am I writing this report? I think Lucy did it, yeah, executive. But what is an executive summary? Is to tell them exactly, following the part of strategy of 2023-25 and the projected revenue growth of ABCD, part of that was to grow talent. So you have told them, this is why I'm presenting this, because it's revenue, not to the person you're bringing. That's not the issue, it's the goal. Then you have to be able to express yourself in a manner that you show with a bit of information and data. You related to this. So the ability to write a proposal is a manner in which you use persuasive language, data-driven, and ability to extract information from the bigger picture and put it in a manner that is able to actually communicate with the people whom we are seeking approval, funds from, and the benefits. It's a common thing in HR. Some of us are also involved in administration. And most people always keep on asking, so why do we need this copier? Why do we need to put in a new system that we go paperless? And you find people struggling until somebody from IT and finance come and say, we spend too many papers, per year, and you hear about 1 million shillings. And somebody says, if I spend 3 million shillings with this paperless of 10 million shillings in 5 years, we will be reaping. And wow, HR, we are pushing about, we were not able to quantify that. So the ability to, and also to write proposals, the challenges that we have also have a skill, and it is a skill. Just look at some of the papers that are presented to us, or even if you Google when you say paper on ABCD, just be amazed how those people are able to put. So when you talk about a proposal, is how you introduce it, what is it you want to address, how you're going to address it, what solution are you providing, and what are the benefits. And so when you're making a report, it must show a positive, an outcome, a qualitative. So we are talking about why do we need, for example, we always talk about salaries, having a grade structure. So what is it? How do we quantify? You say maybe the number of people who have left us in the last year had gone to competition, and my research has shown the difference with the salaries has always been about 5%, 10%. So suppose we have a structured salary where people feel comfortable. So what are you addressing? Engagement. That number of complaints have reduced, the number of staff we have retained. So you must have a base. So that brings me to the next point, is the ability to reach out to different departments, get to know what problems, apply the information and data, which I think now Rolo can build on that.
Thanks very much, Mathangani, for bringing in the interlinkages and how we need to leverage on these interlinkages within the partners we work with internally, so that we can be able to tap on the quality data that we need to use. I'm told, of course, we have a lot of information coming in, especially for most of us who use the dashboards and the information system for HR that we have. But it's also another question whether the data we are gathering is quite enough to make decisions, or is it quality enough to make decisions. And I would be appreciating a lot, Rono, if you can add a bit on where Mathangani has left it in terms of consuming that data that we get from these interlinkages.
Yeah, thank you. First and foremost, we really have to understand what our data source is. So, and I think majority of us have a system that we use, probably whether it's a big organization or a small organization. We all have a system, and it's whether it's robust or not, I'm sure it's a system where data is fed into, and you can also be able to extract data. So first and foremost, it would be really good to understand the kind of system that you're using. First and foremost, the human resource information system is very important. I think that is a software tool that helps HR to collect, store, and manage employee data. Can also generate reports or different metrics, performance, disciplinary, recruitment process. So it's very important to understand. Those guys also use the Power BI. It's also very important. But also Power BI gives us a different kind of visualization, which is very important, depending on the kind of information you want to send out there. Then through employee surveys, whether it's you're contracting it outside through a third party, or you have a team that is doing that, probably the customer service department. You can also use the tool that you can also use is the Excel spreadsheet. I'm sure now you can be able to create what is called a data warehouse, where you can just classify all your data together, put them systematically, ensure that it is structured. You've already cleaned it up. So that is, and also when you're doing the different projects, HR projects, one also of the tools that is very important to use is Gantt charts. That can really show you in terms of timelines and deliverables what you need to use. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. I think now you're bringing the element of of the analytical element of data, and that's where we are going in. The specific reason why we can't wait for that next segment of this discussion. I like the perspective we've also brought in, understanding the sources of our data, and that's critical, cannot be underestimated. Muthangani has also emphasized on that, because we may not have all the data that we need to justify some cases in our reports, and therefore looking, okay, I think we have double entries here of mics. So looking into that specific strategic data sources for our reports is very critical. Not forgetting that there are many different reports that you are producing, and this could vary from one report to the other. So thanks for that. I don't know whether, Lucy, you're able to now get, you got your mic in order. Oh, yeah, looks like she hasn't yet. So maybe, Richard, you could check on what's happening with her. Lucy Mandago, I see she's in, but she still seems to be struggling on this thing. So with that, I'll shift the gears now. We are actually entering in the third segment of this discussion, and we move a bit into now. We've been learning, I've seen a lot of this dynamism of reporting, understanding how we consume data within the different functions of human resource in the workplace. And I know Nelson, who is also here in this core, has done immense work in helping human resource or this profession to be able to understand the analytical element now, which is very critical for a strategic report in HR to make a lot of sense by consuming the story of data and numbers. And this is we cannot as well underestimate this, because as has been demonstrated by the panelists here, you will see there will be justification in terms of how are we increasing, how are we decreasing, how are we deviating from a strategic element A or that the other one. And that has to be told, that story has to be demonstrated clearly in some numbers or in some patterns in the boardroom or wherever you're reporting or taking these reports to. And therefore, I want to bring in, maybe we start with you, Ronald, on this one. Or maybe makes you want to laugh.
You also welcome
okay.
that.
That one is critically invited to this.
Yeah.
So maybe, Brian, you can just tell us what information should a strategic HR report contain in terms of now information.
First of all, let's welcome the young one.
That new one. I'm wondering now whether I call the owner of the baby or the baby.
I think she will be in HR soon.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
That's B2. Yes, B2. I got you. Yes, go ahead, Ronald.
Yes. So basically, I think it would be very prudent for us to shift a bit of our thinking in terms of report writing. I just also want to echo what Muthangani said. Let's be, as we prepare a recruitment report, because we've also seen from the different reports by our members, as we prepare different reports, let's be cognizant of the fact that let's look at the strategy. If we are looking at hiring, yes, we let's say you're a talent acquisition manager. So what is the end goal towards this? So you look at it from the end first as you prepare your reports. So the first thing, it would be an executive summary. Is that is the most important thing that should be included in a strategic HR report. And also give a brief introduction on the reason why you're preparing that report, and the objectives, which should be clearly defined. And this it depends with the aim. What aim are you trying to achieve? Then you analyze the current HR practice, an assessment just of you can do a SWOT analysis if you are having a challenge on recruitments, on leave, training, you just go through like a SWOT analysis just to understand fully what is the main element you're looking at. So it would be really important to first understand. Then another very important is to use the metrics. Use yes, as also you mentioned, Damaris, you're looking at attrition rates. But why are you looking at the attrition rates? Because before you somebody leaves, you really have to understand, are they a regrettable loss? And by a regrettable loss, I mean, is it somebody that is a high performer? You look at their performance, probably over the course of 3 years, depends with the company policy. You're looking at the disciplinary case. If he has an active sanction, you look at performance.
We have lost Ron or what?
Can you hear me?
I can hear Rono. I don't know. Kindly confirm if everybody can hear Rono. I think it's Richard. He's even dropped. Go ahead, Rono.
Yes. So you look at the disciplinary cases. If they have an active sanction, you look at their performance over 3 years. You look at generally their value in terms of the company, because every company has the different sets of values. So these are some of the things that you look at. Employee satisfaction, you look at productivity, then you provide a recommendation. You're working on a recruitment report, you're looking at what are you recommending? Then what is the implementation plan? That is what we were discussing about the Gantt chart. What is the implementation plan? So you just clearly explain a detailed plan on how you'll implement the recommendations, including the timelines, the roles, the responsibilities of every member that is involved in that project. Then also you look at an evaluation and just try to understand before and after, because that is the most important aspect of a strategic HR report. You look at before. We had a 17 or 20% absenteeism rate. So after we implemented XYZ program, we've managed to reduce our absenteeism to 10%. So you have to look at before and after. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thanks very much.
Can I add something there on what Rono is saying?
Yes. Very critical, actually, information. You can add, because we will definitely review it again, so we can grasp a lot about this flow of information in this report. Go ahead, Mathangani.
Thank you. Yes, you know, HR, sometimes we think of things, we call them soft, but they are very hard, because sometimes it's things that we consider soft. And when you talk about leadership, there's nothing soft about leadership. So let's not be thinking our things as soft. I want to build on what Rono has said. We are talking about employee relations, industrial relations. It's one of the things that we seem to spend a lot of time on, but the time we spend on them is fighting the fires and firing. Now, using reports, you can make them very strategic. When you talk about staff exits, we can also use the reports. So I'm going to give 2 examples. One, like what Rono has said, if you are noticing absenteeism, you can create a small database using very simple Excel worksheets. Where are the greatest number of absenteeism in which department? So whichever department, you compute them, because we just report 10 hours of absenteeism. So what next? What is it about that? And we are very good at computing absenteeism from our payrolls. So when you now have data showing in these 5 departments, they are the ones we have a higher rate of absenteeism. Now you can go back and find out, is there a reason for this? The reason is with the people. It's with the system, it's with the environment, or with the process. It could be a management issue. Maybe there is a manager there who is not very good at managing people. So what does that tell you? We need to train, we need to improve on this. So we say, we want to take this manager, we understand they're a bit toxic, they are a bit harsh, or they're not able to interact, or they're actually weak. Then you use this data and say, I've noticed in department-wide that for those in hospitality, in healthcare, and in manufacturing, this happens a lot. So you're able to determine why is there a high attrition. And most of the time, people will tell you, I left because of Richard Magoma, that boss. And you discover in Richard, I'm using you, I don't have any data. Okay, I don't have any data, but it will tell you why are people living in that department. Then it can inform you also and say, there's something we need to do here. The same things when it comes to issues of discipline. Why are we having a lot of disciplinary issues from a certain department? There must be a factor. It cannot be that in Ronald's department is where there is always a case of this. Maybe Ronald has not onboarded the staff properly, maybe he is not supportive, maybe he is a very harsh boss, and he's not developing the staff. So again, you get this data and say, we have a problem in this department. When it comes to issues of discipline, you can say, what is it costing you? When people leave, what is it really costing you? And how do you do that? It took me, I mean, the basic formula of hiring is in any managerial position, you're going to use about that person's 1 full year salary. But how do you quantify that? I spent 5 hours sieving those applications. I had 10 managers here. We spent 5 hours interviewing. Create, because managers don't count their time. But when you tell them, do you know how much it costs even to have a CEO sit here, interview senior managers? So when it comes again to issues like compliances, you look, what has compliance? What are the issues? Most of us are in charge of occupational safety and all this. What reports do we give and what do they address and what are they saying? So when you say 10 incidents, 10 accidents, what did it mean? Downtime. What did downtime mean in that plant? From production manager or operations manager, we lost 5 hours, we lost 10 hours, and they translated into 300,000 shillings. By the way, the production manager has it in their report. That's how they justify why they didn't. But you as HR, you're not showing. So, but what is the issue there? Is safety training. So now you say, from the last incident, accident number, since we implemented a safety training over our 200, 100 employees or 50 employees or 10, we have seen a reduction from 10 incidents, 5 accidents to this. Then people will be seeing, but what do we report? No incident this month, 5 incidents this month. So we must have a column there, action. How shall we measure? Reduce accidents, incidents, like that. So all these things have a measure, including wrongful terminations. Create the fear of loss of revenue and profit into the management, simply by showing them that, if we do this, this is what it means reputation-wise. We had somebody we wanted to hire, they looked very good, but unfortunately they rejected our case. And you tell management, they said they feared they might lose the job because nobody seems to stay in that department. So all the time related to a strategic outcome, to a revenue, because management is very keen on such things.
Thanks very much. Again, we go back to the big, point in the room, that strategic aspects of the business or of the company, very important. And I'm getting some requests here, Ron, on the information that is very strategic to be present in that report. If you could summarize it again, so people can compare whether they actually have so well formulated reports or they leave some elements. So I think you can take a minute also to just go overview again from the strategic summary up to where you ended it with kind of justifying the implementation part of it. in a report.
Okay, I go through it again.
Yes, you can.
Okay. First and foremost is just to have an executive summary of and an introduction. So, what are the findings? Basically, you're looking at what are the findings from the previous reports and the key findings. Then a bit of introduction, a background information on and the reason for that report. Basically, if you're looking at a recruitment report, you might it might be prudent to discuss the previous either quarterly recruitment reports vis-a-vis the current quarter, maybe Q1 and Q2. The objectives, clearly defined goals and objectives that the report aims to achieve. So what exactly do you want to achieve? And also analysis of the current HR practice. So you're looking at as is and to be. So as is what you're currently practicing, and to be is where you want to be. And I think that the next point is on the HR metrics. So you're looking at the absenteeism rate, you're looking at the employee turnover, the attrition, you're looking at survey, employee satisfaction, you're looking at productivity, you're looking at the recruitment reports. And I really liked what Mudangani said. You have currently, let's say, 50 complaints in the last quarter. So what exactly do you want to do? Do you want to reduce the number of customer complaints? Yes, that is what the business wants to achieve. So what is the next step? Is to conduct a training on customer service. This training and before, because as you present the training proposal to the management, you're saying, if we conduct this training or participate in this training, we'll be able to reduce our customer complaints by 25% in the next quarter. Or you're looking at reducing by 10% in the next subsequent quarters progressively. And that has to be justified by the reason why. Yes, you want to do. Okay. I think that would have to be justified. Why do you want to reduce the customer complaints? So is it that we don't, if we are a delivery company, is it that we don't deliver products or our service on time? That's why we want to reduce, and we are losing clients because of that. So you have to look at the end goal before you start preparing that report. And you justify it now in a business case by having metrics. You're looking at last year's customer complaints in 2022 and what you want to do in 2023 in terms of reducing the customer complaints. Thank you.
I think for those who are asking, I think it's a bit clear now. Maybe admit Lucy again, see whether it's a bit clear now. And I think it's important I understand from where you're coming from to flow and how it needs to look like and what objectives needs to bring out. And thanks for that, Rono, for clarifying on that flow. I actually love your format. I think as we move on to the next session, we will be looking into these structures of this report. Probably that would help a lot. Madam Mandago, I think now you're in. Kindly confirm.
Yes, I'm in. Sorry for that.
Finally, it's okay. Actually, sorry a lot. I think you've been trying to join, and there's so much competition to be here on Zoom. I don't know why people don't like Facebook. Yeah. So welcome back. We've quite moved a bit to now to the analytical point of the reporting, but welcome back. I want to switch a bit the discussion to because this the big objective of this session is, as we get to understand and internalize these skills in human resource, that we could be able to know how. The how is a critical element of these sessions that we are having for April. So we will bring you again, Rono, in a minute, so you can give us like a clear demonstration on how do we you know, as we talk about a strategic element, how we source the data and how we navigate in analyzing that kind of element, you just pick a specific one. I know there are many. And how will they end up coming out in the report in terms of reporting at the end of the whole process? And you will demonstrate that, probably give you like for 2 or 3 minutes uninterrupted, then you can demonstrate that. But before I jump into that, I want also to bring in Masangani as a way of either recapping or adding on to the information that is contained in a strategic report. And I know through this, probably Lucy will be able to catch up. So Muya, you can put in your input before I jump into analytics.
Okay, thank you. Basically, a strategic report should be just like the way we have a work plans, which shows what is the objective, what are we doing, what is where we say this is the objective or the goal. Then we have to have the strategy, which is basically the activities that will go into towards achieving that. Mm-hmm. If there is a cost, then you have to provide that cost. Because again, if you don't provide that cost, then your report becomes subjective. So you must say what resources will be required in terms of whether it is equipment, people, or financial. Then the outcome, what will be the outcome? It could be a qualitative or a quantitative. But always remember, if it has no measure, like Lucy told us, don't do it. Don't tell us you want to get it. So the key thing is demonstrate what value this is going to add. Either if you have got like the example Brian gave, if customer service or service delivery or efficiency improves, what impact will it have on the business? So you may not be able to quantify, but when you go to business, you tell them, so if I get all this done, what do we want to see? I think when we reduce our complaints from this to this percentage, we may be able to attract or retain 10% at 5%, because that you're working for them really, but then they see it like their own problem, but then they bring it to you to get the people. Then from there, you must also be very specific with the timelines and who is the other partner. Because if it is for another department, then you'll be relating to that. This is to business A, department Y. If it's technical, I have initiated a trainee management training program with XYZ. I'll be attaching my people to cost me this and this. What is the impact? So you are relating to that department. You're not just talking about management trainees, technicians, I want interns, and nobody is asking, well, I'm not sure whether I need them. And because sometimes we do come with the program, and then we bring these things, everybody is just looking at this. And that's where we have these interns who are walking around the departments, okay? So it's very important that everything you do, you put it in such a manner. And when you build a strategic, it's actually the figures, the impact, the outcome, and what goal is it going to achieve. And that is why, irrespective of the issues that we call almost unquantifiable, nothing is not quantifiable. That absenteeism, that attrition, that boss who is really, really making people go away, you must quantify that. So that is how you build it. Of course, all the things that we do at the end of the day, whether you want to reduce, and most of us, what do we do? Oh, this medical scheme is costing so much, please look for another way. What do? We just get quotations. Maybe there's a problem with our value systems. Our system is, can I say, compromised. There's a lot of cheating. So the issue we should be addressing is values. That's why we go back. I like what Ronald said. Something must be based on something. Our mission, yes. Code of conduct. So we go back to the code of conduct and we let people know, please, this is us. This is how we operate. And cheating, lying, integrity issues, we take them very seriously. So what do? All the cases of simple, we call them simple but very serious. The other day I was talking with somebody who said, how do I sack a lady who had stolen a bread in a school? I said, what are your values? But unajua ni mama, alisema anapelekea watoto. So what happened, has happened often, wanaiba sana. Then I said, it's because you have not, that mission you have put on your board there and it was in the office. Have you measured the extent to which you have said we are people of integrity? So there are all those things we call soft. But when we put them to the board of directors or to senior management and say, I have now stopped privilege since I implemented this system, because maybe the system allowed it, or I have trained people on how to manage integrity issues, to communicate, to handle discipline, to interact and all that. So everything must have that measure. So don't be looking at just the issues of numbers, people, because that's for the people's salaries and all that. We forget those other very core things that drive us. And I can assure you, if you start today, talk to us in January next year, you'll be finding your boss asking you, how did you do it? I said, I just asked you to have 500,000 a year or 200,000 shillings for training. Well, this is the outcome. I asked you that we implement this system, it will save us so much. And like what Ron was talking about, you are a service company, delivery, things are always lost. Your warehouse is chaos. When you come with a system and say, I would like to introduce qualified people in 1, 2, 3, and I think we will reduce mix-ups and all that. So that's how you can be able to build yourself. Wherever you are, whatever stage you are, never wait to say, I wish I was working for Safaricom, they have very good system. Start it right there you are. Simple. Start with that Excel worksheet, quantify your numbers. The rest, talk to Rolo and Nelson Oguza, they will teach you more about things. So, and always the issue of having a metric and how you measure. So metric is we'll do the following, analytics, 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, and start small. Don't start too big. Sometimes we start too big. Just say quarterly, monthly. I'll be saying, I have not had an incident in safety since we did this. Or there were 10. In June, there are 6. In November, we are at 4. Yeah, there's a movement and you have the numbers. Where was it? Plant A, Department Y, border 2. After I took them for defensive training, we have reduced this. Maintenance, after I took my driver to learn basic motor vehicle maintenance, we have not had a case of ABCD.
Maybe Damaris, I have a question.
Yes, just a second. I'll come straight to you on that. So again, Moya, our emphasis is link your action or whatever it is that you say you have done to the value, or I mean, what value, by answering the question, what value is it adding? And that reminds me, I'm in the space of learning and development, and we get these reports, we've trained that 34 managers, and it's an outcome, you know. You look at it and you want to ask yourself, so what does that mean, training 34 managers? Or you've taken, so it doesn't end there. And I like the way we're linking it, and we'll see a demonstration from Rono, or now it makes sense at the end of the other corner, which is very critical. So it's no longer about ticking the boxes, but what importance does whatever you're doing influence the objective. And I think that's why we started from up there, even in the report, stating what is the objective of trying to meet this. Yes, Richard, before I jump into the next segment.
Sorry to interrupt. Now, I'm seeing a situation where, but HR people have got to become people who are able to predict what is going to come in the future. What tools can we use so that we can be able to function very well within the VUCA situations that are existing? Even if, for example, I predict something right now, how sure I am that what I've predicted now with data is going to be the one that is applicable in the next 1 month, 3 months? How do I gain this consistency so that I can be able to deal with the VUCA situations that we normally experience?
Thanks very much. You are a genius. I don't know how you read my mind, because that's where we are going. The tools that we need for us to respond better is the next discussion that I was moving into. But thanks for asking that. That's Richard Magoma, an award-winning HR and a coach, of course, in his space. And thanks for that. And Rono, I want to bring you into this mix, because I can get a feeling that people now want to know, how do we navigate this analytical element? Before you tell us a bit about what tools then in our disposal, at our disposal, that we can use to be able to achieve the same. And you can choose any strategic element in the report to kind of give us a demo. I'll give you 3 or so minutes uninterrupted if you need that.
Thank you, Damaris. Just allow me to share my screen.
Go ahead.
Just let me know once you see my screen.
Okay. Wait. Okay, it's coming. Oh. Mm-hmm.
Can you see my screen?
We are trying to see what is coming. It's still coming from my side. I don't know whether the rest are still seeing it.
I can see.
Okay, good.
Okay, I think I'll just go through a brief presentation on strategic report. So
and maybe Rono, can everybody else confirm whether they can see the screen before we assume it's just us? Kindly confirm through the chat. If you can see the screen, just key in yes there so we can proceed. Yes.
Hi, Damaris, just confirm if I should proceed.
Okay, there's some people saying no, I don't know why. And those on Facebook are also saying they can't see it, it's blank. Maybe you can stop sharing, then you reshare again.
Yeah, okay. Let me try to. Yes. Can you see my screen?
Please confirm I can see it. I think Facebook also saying they can see it.
Yes.
Yes, everybody is saying yes. Rono, we can proceed now.
Okay, let's proceed. I just put it on slide mode, so I think that's okay.
Yes.
Good. So I think I'll just take us through a brief strategic HR report, where we are looking at a company that wants to recruit 50 new sales agents, and in their 2024-2026 strategic objectives, they want to increase sales by 300 million shillings annually. Mm-hmm. So the HR department has been approached by sales to that they want to hire. So they have a hiring request of 50 new sales agents to be able to push the strategic objectives, that is of sales of 300 million shillings annually. So they're looking at almost $1 billion Kenya shillings growth in terms of sales by 2026. So we are looking at where we're coming from. So, and I'd said this before, previously there are 20 agents, sales agents, and for them, they had minimal sales. It was not clear. They didn't have a strategy. They didn't know where to go to. And so for them, they're saying, and actually just put it out there, that they want to increase sales revenue by 250 annually, just to help achieve their strategic objectives. So we just confirm if you are together.
Yes.
Yes, you're following. We're following Ronald.
Yeah, we are.
Thank you. So this is the current dashboard for the 20 sales agents. And we are here looking at their total annual sales. So these are 20 sales agents. This is just a dummy data that I used. And we are looking at what is the current average revenue per staff. And you see what is the average profit. PBT stands for profit before tax per staff. So this information, your data source is finance and sales. So you have to work hand in hand. Depending with the nature or the type of the report, you have to work hand in hand with different departments, mostly finance, and at times also sales, but most times finance, because they have all of this data together. And also had one of our members saying they also prepare commission reports for the for HR, which is for sales staff, but for HR, which is good. So we are looking at the annual performance rating. We are also looking at their total annual sales. So you might find the best employees. We are, if you can just look clearly, Matthew, Abigail, to the least performing, Ethan, Christopher, Joshua. So what exactly are we trying to say here? That we are analyzing what is already happening, the current performance of the sales agents. What is their average profits before tax per staff? And what is their average revenue per staff? And here, in the next slide, we are just looking at what is the comparative analysis now when you check revenue versus OPEX. How much is Emma generating in terms of revenue vis-a-vis the operating expense? So that is how you'll arrive at the profits before tax per employee. Because for revenue, and if for you to get profit before tax, that is the revenue minus OPEX, the operating expenses. So here we factor in, we look at Emma. How much does Emma generate? Emma generates around 3.5 million annually. How much does, but you see her OPEX is also high, but not relatively high as compared to, you can have a look at Olivia. Olivia is also generating more than 3.5 million, but her OPEX is also high. We look at an employee by the name Eva. She's generating around 3.2, but her OPEX is low, which is a good thing. So you don't only look at the revenue aspect of it, you also have to look at the operating expenses per employee. What are they, how much are they generating vis-a-vis how much they're using to generate the revenue? Then that now also boils down to what I was talking about, the profits before tax per employee, because you can see it's from a high profit before tax per employee to the low. So Emma is performing well generally. I think she's the best as compared to Joshua. So now you go further and ask, what is the cost benefit analysis post hire? If we hire the new 50 sales agents, what are we looking at? So what is the cost benefit analysis of hiring more the new 50 sales agents? So it will increase our sales revenue. We'll have higher productivity. By adding more staff, the current sales team can focus on other key activities such as account management, client relationship building, and business development. So these are you want to push a new product in the market, but even as you push, you also want to you have stakeholder engagements. You have to have a new account management, and also do more of the BD, which is business development. And you're also proposing with a larger sales force, the company can actually improve its market share by 8% and establish a stronger brand reputation. So you're also looking at the competitive advantage. Then we go further and say, what are the costs? What are the recruitment costs? What are the training costs? What are the salaries and benefits? So you say the recruitment costs, the training costs, salaries and benefits, so the total staff costs would come to around 35 million. So what are the projections post-hire? So the conclusion is, in the investment of these new 50 sales agents, other than the recruitment costs, training salaries, you're looking at a projected revenue per staff of 4.29 million as compared to the average revenue per staff of the last year of 2.5. So you're talking about an increase of almost 1.7. You're looking at 1.7. You're also looking at the projected profit before tax of per staff of 2.29 million compared to 1.5, so an increase of around 1 million. You're looking at also a projected operational expense per staff. So how much were they generating? How much were they using to generate revenue? So these are some of the examples that we can use even as we prepare our strategic reports, that you're looking at as is, then you're also looking at to be. How can I show value when we hire new sales agents in the market? So this is just an example I used for the sales staff. You can look at trainings. You can look at, I was also giving an example initially, we have a training, as also Damaris had mentioned, we want to, there's a proposal that we want to hire 50 managers, maybe on compliance. But we have to look at what is before the training. What was our compliance level at? Maybe you'll say it was at 60%. Then if we want to improve our level of compliance to 60%, we are proposing a training of 50 managers on compliance and maybe on regulatory issues, and also maybe on employment law or anything, just to be able to improve our level of compliance. By doing this, we'll be able to reduce on our exposure in terms of risks by this percent. So once you do that, now becomes interesting. So finally, just different scenarios by projecting revenue per staff and OPEX per employee to evaluate the impact of hiring additional sales agent. Overall, the report just provides a compelling case for hiring 50 new sales agents to meet its strategic objectives. Thank you. I'll stop there unless maybe there's a question.
Thank you very much, Rono. I think once you go to the summary part, people sort of connect those analytical graphics.
Yes.
It's what we're trying to make friends with. And I think it's very clear. You've made it a bit simplified, and we can see using one element. Like we said, you've just picked one element, and there are many elements of the report, but quite flows. But I am welcoming all the questions, please, in the chat. Let me see, because the moment you got to some numbers, it's when I saw Nelson Oguda's hand up. And I know Nelson, like I mentioned earlier, has been driving this idea that we need to really change in this profession on how we do our reporting. So Nelson, I'll give you less than 30 seconds so we see what you want to tell us, or is whether it's a question.
Hi, Nelson. Hi, Nelson.
Nelson, are you there? I know. Hello? I can see you on mute, but yes, go ahead. Yes, I can hear you. You sound like you're very far from your mic.
Hi, Nelson.
Hi. Okay.
Hi, how are you?
Fine. Okay. Now, this is an interesting one, and actually, once I saw the graph and referring back to the.
We can't hear you clearly.
You may want to project your voice.
Can I try again now?
Yes.
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. I was saying that this is an interesting one. that have been able to hear from us. So I just wanted to add that from the analytical aspect, what you're actually doing is that, from what you just shown, if we had someone here who is from talent acquisition, who is a specialist in that area, and from what you just presented, where we are looking at the revenues and the OPEX and all that. So if you were to go to the market to hire a salesperson, then who would we want to mirror? Do you want to mirror Olivia? Do you want to mirror Joshua? Do you want to mirror so and so? So that when you go to the market to start sorting out CVs, you want to look at a given person so that you bring in the person that will give you more benefit, and that will actually inform your recruitment decisions and on who to actually hire, or as term as successful in your as you do your interviews. So I just wanted to add that point, is that you might be having people here who are also talent acquisition specialists, and how would they use the same scenario to still or the same analysis to bring in their prowess in that field. Yes, thanks.
Thank you, Nelson. Just also, if I may, just permit me to add, that is really important. Now, you've already made a proposal. It has already been signed off by the top management. Now it boils down to HR. So what exactly, as Nelson said, who do we want to mirror? Do we want to mirror Olivia? So we'll be able to come up with a job description or a job role for the new 50 sales agents. So here we are looking at, you have to get the proper recruitment quality. So what are we looking at? We are looking at, this is a new product. So we are looking at people with experience in that new line. So maybe we want to sell, maybe there's a new TV in the market. So we want experience of around 5 years in the electronic industry or in the electronics business. So because now you want to improve on that and also set up a specific job role for that for the 50 sales agents. So that is quite insightful.
I also find it very insightful, and it's very true, because once we have the data and we have been able to present it the way you have in that dashboard, or that's what the dashboard is telling us, then we should pick insights like what Nelson is saying. If we compare the cost versus the profit by the people we have recruited, then we will be able to ask ourselves a bit of other questions that can help make us more efficient, even in recruiting in that portfolio, maybe in the future. So thanks very much. I think that was a bit of a demo on how we can navigate the elements that we consider as strategic in an HR report. And we are still waiting for the questions right here. I'll just speak.
Damaris, Coach
yes,
had asked a question. Yes. Coach Richie had asked a question.
On the tools, right?
Yes, maybe I can just make a comment, but maybe Rono will come in later. Yeah, I think he was asking how we can be able to predict things using tools. I want to give it from one perspective, then I think the rest can weigh in. It is possible to predict certain things from a HR perspective using the same information and data that we have. For example, let me just give one example. If you're talking about staff attrition, you can go back to 3 years, 1 year, look at the data. Who is leaving? Which department? Are they performers? Are they laggards? What kind of employees were they? So you go back and say, I have seen 10 people left in this department. Then you have to get a lot of information about them. What were their qualifications? What were their performance details? How was their conduct? And you can be able to say, out of these 10 people left, I have found out 1, 3, 4, or 5 were very good performers. So you will say, we are losing high performers. Something we never really seem to, we are very quick to start recruiting when somebody leaves, watch I ended, we'll get another one, I'm a boss. Then we have to ask ourselves, so we are losing high performers, what is the reason? Go back, Get more data. Who was the manager? How was the manager rated? Maybe they were good, bad, whatever it is. So you gather all these so-called information and data, and that will be able to inform you that we are likely to lose. We recruit a manager. I know that there are people I am working with, and they keep telling me, one of them, nobody lasts. We hire this person at this level, they are all leaving. In the last 2 years, I've hired 2 general managers. So told them, talk to your boss. There is something which is not working. What they discovered is that there were people in that department who are also very toxic and cooperative. The systems were not working. You know, the kind of situation where you come in with a lot of energy, but you find the systems are not what you are used. So you can be able to say that it's almost predictable, but then you look for a solution. If you're losing your best employees in a certain department, or there are the people who always leave at any level are your good workers, then you're left with all due respect to those guys who are difficult, hard to handle, they are ever absent. Then you have to ask yourself, using the same data. So the metrics is very good. What will reduce staff attrition in department Y? Then you have to look, how do we analyze that? So don't look for short-term data also, because that's the other thing. Go back, try to gather as much data. 3 years data is enough, because they're just looking who has left. Look, go back to their, and therefore, the greatest point is that you must have information at your fingertips. How you arrange it, where you put it. I think now Rono can take over from there, because you must be able to be extracting it. Who left? Oh, we are losing Gen Z. This is, then we are blaming them, we're blaming them. But have we looked at Mazangani? Maybe he is just preaching to them, and these guys just want to do work, and you know, all these nice, my style of working. Then you may say, we need to get Masangani to be able to work with Gen Z. Then you go and say, we are going to train our managers in 1, 2, 3 things. Those people who talked about diversity, well, what is it for? So you have to have a measure. Yeah, before, I think there was a lot of animosity, a lot of exclusiveness, a lot of biases towards ageism, young generation, lack of cooperation. Then you say, I think, let's create a program. Then you'll be, since we did ABCD, we allowed people to come to work with genes. I think we have seen less complaints or disgruntlement from people in this demographic age. And this is how data created. Find out things, not perceptions. Because I think HR, we are very good at perceptions. Wachana na hao, ni hao vijana, ni hao watoto wetu. But if you don't present it to the management in such a manner that I have noticed, we are always losing best performance. Because by the way, this happens. Most of the staff who disappear are the good ones. The bad ones, we are the ones who are giving us headaches, and that is why we have been added to 1,000 ways to die as HR. Let's stop that, okay? Let's deal with metrics and analytics. So I hope that explains. So Richard, you can be able
I think it does.
Yeah, and predict that we are likely to lose that new employee. Why? They never last 1 year. They never last 2 years. Now find out why. They need to inform what you need to do to find a solution and put it as part of your strategy. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Matangani. I think you've actually even brought a very prime principle in psychology of behavior, that behaviors are very predictable. So once you're able to establish the patterns, then you can predict. And I think that's sort of demonstrated through data insights, that we can actually predict something and correct or enhance or even promote them. And I think that's clear. Richard is writing notes there, so I hope it has been able to answer on that one. So Lucy, I don't know whether you want to add on the tools that we need to arm ourselves with. Whether they are very simple, easily to use, but they can enable us to produce the kind of outcome that we are looking for in terms of reporting.
Yes, Damaris, I would like to, but before I go there, I want to add on to what Mutangani has come up with. Very interesting. And it's something that as HR people, we are not focusing so much into it as much as it's coming to it's hitting us at the moment. The young people, there's so many young people coming to the job market, while us as HR people are still stuck to the traditional way of managing people. There are almost about 3 generations in the workplace. What are we doing about them? So there is need for, when we are doing our reports, to give the composition of the age differences in the institution. Because if you have so many young people, you won't ask these people that you have to be at your workplaces by 8 and leave by, you will fail. So there's need for us as HR people to know if I have 6% of my workforce is the young people, that is between age maybe 20 to 35 or whichever age the list is to 35, what does that mean for the organization? It means you have to do things differently, and so many things have to change, the policies and all that. If you want, and these are your productive workforce, they're the people who once results, as much as they want to get to the workplace and they are tomorrow the CEOs or whatever it is, they're the people you are using to deliver on your company strategy. So there's need to focus so much on how we report about them and what are we doing. It's not just about saying, oh, we have a young workforce and we are there. It has to change a lot of things. So on the tools that we have, I want to agree with Tanganya. We use, however simple they are, but you must also arrange the data you have so that whenever you need it, you can easily retrieve them. If you're still in the age of using Excel or whatever tool you're using, however simple it is, it must be that tool that you're able to manipulate and work with it to give you to meet the objectives of what you're reporting on. And I think for us as HR people, we must leverage so much on technology, and especially those young people. Sometimes you may not need to even go and buy a tool for doing your data analysis. There's these young people and they're very techno-savvy, and they can actually help you to come up with simple tools which you can use in your institution. So you can make use of the people you have to come up with simple tools. But if you want to go high-end, then you need to invest or budget for tools you can use to do analytics. And once we have the tools for reporting, it moves us from being transactional to now strategic HR. Because most of the things we do without these tools are just basic paperwork, leave days, you get Excel and run the leave days and do this. But if you have tools to report on that, or the systems, or the HR systems you can use, it becomes so simple. What would have taken you like a whole day doing it just takes a few minutes, and it gives room for you now to think about more strategic things that you could do without having to spend more time. And like if we look at most institutions, when we are doing the training needs analysis, there are forms.
Lucy,
We've lost you, Lucy.
Oh, sorry, I muted myself by mistake. So it's good to leverage on technology so that we can move from being transactional to now being strategic, even as we go forward. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Lucy, for that. I think in terms of tools, the simplicity is not actually what the question is, but is it enabling you to deliver what we want to deliver in terms of outcome? Rono, you want to add on that? I know you have robust tools that can help us in HR. You're mute, maybe you want to unmute yourself.
Sorry. As a beginner, it would be good to start with Excel. Excel would really give you, if you're, it's a bit a challenge to you in terms of coming up with Excel templates. As Lucy said, you can get insights from the young team to help you come up with templates. So you just explain to them what exactly you want, and you can be able to populate the templates with your data now. That data, you can use pivot charts, you can use pivot tables to come up with very nice dashboards that have that are linking, for example, sales to attrition rates, to trainings, to disciplinary. So it can really, to even head count, it can really show you a lot of insights. So it would be really good as a beginner to start with the Excel, because where we are currently, if you are just to analyze, if I'm to analyze the Kenyan HR space in terms of data, we are still at the descriptive stage. But we have now to move, the quicker you move to predictive, the faster you'll be in terms of diagnosing what the problems are. So the faster you move in your organization where you are, you easily solve problems. So we all want to be an employer of choice. But what does that mean? We talk about productivity, we talk about staff engagements, we talk about good remuneration, not necessarily the best, but at least your employees are complaining about the salaries are pretty low. Just hear them and do a survey. For a HR manager in the same industry, because you have to look at industry. HR manager in, let's say, telecommunications industry, let's say like Safaricom. Definitely Safaricom is paying better than Airtel, but at least get an average for you to then look at that now in the bigger picture and say, if we improve salaries, for example, what is the end goal towards this? It will increase our costs. So you have to look at, before you increase salaries, that means you'll increase pension if it's permanent and pensionable. If it's contract, you're looking at other like benefits, airtime, travel. So it's a whole spectrum of ideas. So it would be really good to really understand. And as a beginner, just start with Excel. Then as you also, it's also good to now improve, move to Power BI, we move to Tableau, because we have to keep on learning. Let's not stop learning. I think that is what I would really urge all of us. Let's just continue. There are these free Excel tools and templates in or classes in LinkedIn that would really help us.
Thanks very much. I think in terms of basics, even listening from other perspectives of analytics, like Nelson here will tell us, just start with Excel sheet. Yeah, because it can actually enable us. In fact, Excel sheet can actually help and has a lot of features that can actually go beyond the just descriptive. And thanks for that, Rono. I want to, like you're saying, we keep on learning, and going by some charts here, there's so much experience in this call that we can all learn from. And I know even talking about board reports and board papers, yeah, which ideally take more or less the same shape of this reporting, we realized that there's actually a lot we can learn from one another, and this is one way of getting it right. Like Atara Solution Grace, I think I saw you will always tell us on Tuesday, it's very important that we strive to get it very right. And maybe from the people who say they actually do these strategic reports, you can tell us what their experience has been, because there seem to be very few questions coming in, just to a lot of people appreciating the value of what they're getting. And I've seen Damaris Akuto, are you in? Did I see you somewhere? Damaris?
Yes, I am, Damaris.
Ah, there you are. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
Yes, I know you do quite a number of those at board level. What has worked for you in terms of tools?
I think for me, I don't know whether I would say it's slightly different, but what I gather from here is that each and every pillar, you may be making a report on, but what I do for the board is that I put everything together. So of course, there's the element of executive summary, the SWOT analysis, and what goes on in the market, and how you can have your report outward facing. And then you come back to the pillars of HR, which are mainly succession planning, talent management, and all that put together. And then maybe just pick up what we may have done in the quarter. So if it is the programs, which programs? Is it capacity building? Is it engagement? Is it an ESS, employee satisfaction survey, to just get the level of engagement? And then now probably you want to give that visibility to the board, what is really happening, with the people. You want the board to feel the pulse rate of the organization. And so for that, then now you want to put in proposals. What do you want the board to approve to allow you to be able to implement and move the organization from that level, or maybe a notch higher? So that for me covers a whole spectrum of HR pillars, and coming back to, up to rewards and compensation, disciplinary, and just picking up what is really critical and that you want the board to have a visibility of. Of course, there are elements that you might not want to take to board level. You probably want to put it at the transactional level and leave it at the management board before it gets to the board of directors. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I like the way you said it in a very unique way, that you can actually have these pillars, which is good depending on the level at which you're reporting or what kind of a report. But you can also actually narrow on what is critical within the time frame. And there you have it. I think you've illustrated very well on how to justify that, in line most of what you've discussed. So thanks very much, Damaris, for sharing your experience. I'm looking for one who can tell us this transcended to the predictive kind of justifying issues in their report. I don't know whether we can get one here. Mr. Kadima.
I almost laughed because I thought that is an indictment against our education system. So who has moved? Maybe Nelson can tell us, how can we move to now that highly pronounced level of being predictive?
I was actually calling Kadima. Kadima, are you still in here? Asava Kadima. Maybe jump on call. Sorry, is that? Yes. I'm not sure that it's Kadima who's speaking, but Nelson, are you on mic?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So
I'm actually looking for these insights as I'm waiting for some questions, because you're closing in case we didn't meet your expectation, so we meet it at this point. But if you don't have a question, just leave your comment, your compliment right in the chat, so we know that we met your expectations before we announce the next move on this topic. But go ahead, Nelson.
Okay. I think when we look at predictive analysis in HR, we don't need to overthink about it, because if you I always give a good example of if you're doing a CSR and you go to a children's home and pay school fees for the child for the whole year, what do you expect in future? What can you predict? If the problem was that the student has been absent in school because of fees, so if the absenteeism was on school fees, which you paid for the whole year, what do you predict that will happen next year? Is that we expect that in next year, the student will not be absent because you paid school fees. So sometimes we might not be really mathematical when it comes to being predictive. Yeah? But when you want to go predictive enough, as I just put on the chart, is that you'll also have to be in some space. Because we will now also want to bring in, it might be school fees, but there are other aspects of it. Maybe they're also just lazy about going to school. So how will the laziness also affect you going to school? And is this laziness the same? Is this laziness related with the lack of school fees? Am I being lazy because I don't have school fees? I know either way I will not go to school because I don't have school fees. So that kind of a behavior change. So for us in HR, if you wanted to go analytical way, then you must be good with the research. That's also an area that we need to look into very keenly. Are we doing enough research to help us understand the behavior? Because we are people, and behavioral science or psychology is our thing. So we are sure that when you understand psychology of people, then you can actually predict what Nelson will say. Yeah, and you know that when discussing this issue, Nelson will also contribute. I don't want to get into statistics because we're not there yet as of now, but understand Excel is an amazing tool and a basic one to use. I've used Excel time. It's actually a real thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Nelson. Thanks for that. Reassurance that it doesn't have to be very analytical in approach. It can be very simple. That's very reassuring for some people. I'm saddened about that. So what is the ideal reporting time for HR? Is it monthly or quarterly? And if any of those timelines fit, what do we need to include in that report? Maybe Lucy, you can close on this point by answering this from Sarah Sagala.
Okay, thank you, Damaris. I think it depends on every institution, how the reporting cycle goes, but mostly it's for the HR reports, for you to be on track on what is happening and also be up to date, is reports monthly to, as we say, reports are different. There are those reports you would report to the senior management, and there are those you would report to the board. Of course, for the senior management, you could do it monthly on keeping them abreast on where we are going, what we are doing, the progress of whatever it is, all those pillars in HR. But for the board, you can do it monthly, not sorry, quarterly, and you now report comprehensively. And by the way, whenever you do monthly reports, it builds up to your quarterly reports. So if you do your monthly reports thoroughly, then by the time you get to the end of the quarter, it's just putting them together and giving a very comprehensive report. And as someone has said earlier on, it's not everything that gets reported to the board. It's what you need, guidance, decisions, and you need to be approved for to implement. So that's how the reporting would do, but it depends on the organization. Some would want weekly, some would want monthly. So it depends on how. But whichever way, you must make sure that your reports are timely and they are giving the progress of how the activities are going. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So you can have any timeline, just depends on when they are needed or when you're supposed to be reporting on those aspects. So ladies and gentlemen, I can see the chat is flowing more with just appreciation comments. Very insightful kind of demo from Brian. People are really appreciating the way you demonstrated that from that 50 sales recruitment demo you did there. Very insightful. Looking forward to more of those. The webinar was very educative. Very looking forward for live kind of webinars. It was very informative. That you can see here. People have really appreciated the values that they have actually achieved on this one. Haven't we met their objective? I think in my own perspective and where I see it, I say yes, going by what is coming through the chat. We have probably over met the expectation. So commendable, put together, and the presentation. Actually, Mercy is telling me you have exceeded the expectation. So I will move into a session where we get parting shot from our panelists, and then we will call it a day. If you are keen on taking your reporting to the next level and you want to learn on how to asset, be free and feel free to leave your email on the chat so we can have a conversation on how we can help you on this. And are we serious about it? I've gotten many people actually wondering, how are you going to do this kind of a strategic webinar for free? Yes, sometimes we just got to do this for our profession. So let's go to parting shots, and I want to start from Mathangani Muya. Welcome. You're mute, Muya.
Sorry. Thank you. We have to just appreciate the fact that a lot more goes to becoming a successful HR specialist, and you have to go beyond the typical approach of transactional. You have to develop also your leadership skills and specific components of competencies that will allow you to actually create your presence. And some of them are the things that we read around or we are encouraged about or build confidence, but we really measure our own confidence. So a lot of self-reflection on personal development, because besides the things that we have learned, we must be able also to face challenges, and they are there, communicate confidently, articulately, and having the right tools. So go beyond that, and we also know we work in different environments. Please learn to be very intentional about your career. What I mean by this is, there are some places where, with all due respect, you might not be able to get these opportunities to practice what really you have learned, not here, but what is your line. So when you see this opportunity, have the courage to take that step and say, maybe now I'm working in this small organization, medium-sized or an environment. Please be taking bold steps intentionally about your career. The comfort zones sometimes keep us there, and what we do, we get into bad habits. We work in a place 5 years where nobody cares about discipline, about reports, about professionalism. The next time you're also behaving like them. And that happens. It has happened to people, and we are told, please, we are not here now. So culture, and that is Damari's area. Culture influences. If you feel it is not fitting with you, be intentional. And I can assure you, 2 to 3 years, you'll be able to get a place. So move out there, develop yourself. The teachers
Thank you very much. Sorry, I thought you were done.
Thank you. It's okay.
I think you've said a very key word I like using, being intentional, like about your career, because if there's something I know for sure, you own it, is your career. Ni kama kujikuna. My friend says your career is like kujikuna. If you feel you need to move to this, sometimes irrespective of the culture you have, you really have to push that hand to get to that point where you want to scratch yourself. So thanks very much, Muya, for coming on board to the panel. Much appreciation for finding time for that. Muya is the MD of Pristine Management Solutions, a very astute coach, leadership coach. He's also an award-winning mentor, an initiative that is led by the Institute of Human Resource Management. He's got over 25 experience in space of HR. It was an honor to have you, Muya, in the panel. Thanks very much. Rono Analytics. I think that's a new name. I'll say you.
Thank you, Damaris. For me, it's just to encourage everyone to understand what the company's strategy is, even as you prepare your reports. Get to understand more about the different kinds of metrics that will be used to measure, because we say, what you can't measure, it's something you can't present. So please just make sure you understand a bit of metrics, improve on the Excel tools, even as you move towards the more complicated tools. So please, let's all understand the company's strategy. If it's not there, please, I'm sure there's the annual objectives of the company, and I think we'll become better in terms of giving strategic HR reports. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rono. First, I appreciate you for making it so simple in terms of analytics and demonstrating to us in a way that we can understand. And it's something that we're getting acclimatized time, numbers. I know me, I've done mathematics. That's not it's not a bad one, like I see from other perspectives. And thanks for joining the panel to be able to articulate it from the other side of where you sit. It was an honor to have you in the panel. There's just so much that we can learn from you, and definitely the next webinar or training, we hope you'll be coming on board. So thanks very much for coming on this one. Lucy Mandago, come on board.
Okay, thank you so much, Damaris, and thank you for everyone. We have really learned from each other, and I hope we will put the knowledge we've learned to practice. What I want to encourage us is that we must be expert matters in the companies we work for. We've had the recent trends like the HR people are the best CEOs. You can never be a CEO if you don't understand the business. So we must be the best expert matter in everything, all round. It doesn't matter whether you did accounts or what, but you must understand the business of the organization. And now you can do that is that you make sure you're part of every meeting that is discussing about business aspects of the business of the organization. That's the only way you are able to understand the organization in out. Take wanasema ujitume. So send yourself to those meetings, even when you are not invited. You have to find your foot in there so that now you can make it to the top seat. And we'd like to see many HR people getting there. No offense to the other professions, but that's where we need to go. Let's be strategic. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Mercy, can't wait to say, Lucy, that's top-notch advice, which is I agree with you completely. Mercy is top-notch. We need to really be proactive about these things, and we also need to appreciate there's help everywhere, including the reason why we're doing this. There are so many people now who can help us in being able to get on that boardroom or that meeting confidently, and hammer that kind of point very closely for people to actually see it makes a lot of sense, and they're nodding because it's very possible, like the others could always do that. We really are so happy to have you on this panel. You come handy when it comes to rich matters of HR, as always. Lucy, thanks for the support all along, and for the insights that you brought on board in being able to differentiate just the traditional and moving from that traditional report, because it's no longer about talking about what we've done, but what insights can it predict or can it bring on the table for decision making for the leaders who are, of course, always engaged in that meeting. So asante sana, we appreciate you and look forward for other webinars that you may continue joining us. So ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. I think you put your word in the chat. Yes, we have a number of people who say they need to be helped, or maybe they need a further journey on how to be able to get to that kind of a report that we've learned today. No problem. If you still feel that you need more support and you want to make OS that report, continue leaving your emails on the chat so we can probably see where you are stuck and how we can help you. And thanks. I want to bring this meeting into a close. It's 25 minutes. Over and above 12 noon, Mathangani was telling me, oh, this is a long time. Amazing. Yeah, I think the agenda was a bit critical and heavy for that. So from Damaris, thanks very much. I've been your host for this session. Again, like I said from the beginning, we are keen on making sure we navigate, we transcend as a profession. And this series for this month is to enable us to push a number of us to that level. So we was hosted by Blue Concepts Africa, and we continue hosting for the next 2 or so weeks before we close the month on. So look out for the other topics that are coming on board every Saturday. For those who missed, of course, because I know some people are always keen on coming on Zoom and not on other platforms, direct them to Zoom, because this is also on Zoom and I mean on Facebook, and we still continue being on Facebook. So we had partners here, pristine management support from all along, and that is Mathangani Mui, as I've mentioned, in preparation of the program. Thanks very much, Mathangani. The Talent Growth Club, I know you can see Richard Magoma is a member of the Talent Growth Club, and maybe because you're the one I can see actively here, I haven't seen the rest of the members except Muya. Maybe you can just say a comment as we close this, Richard.
I have one word or 2 words.
Yes.
People will always listen to you if you've got something of substance. Of course, not politics. Politics, people can listen to you even if you have got nothing to say. But if, in a professional setting, if you have got something very masterful to talk about. People will listen to you, whether you are speaking in mathematical language, whether you are speaking in your language, you must have some substance. Once you have substance, you become the Zen master of that particular environment you are. And I think Blue Concert, pristine talent, this is what the space they are in. Knowledge is power, always, especially applied knowledge. Thank you.
Thanks very much. That's very powerful, Richard, way to end it. Knowledge is power, especially when it's applied. It's even more power for that. Thanks, that's Richard Magoma. We have Mathangani and myself, who are also members of the Talent Growth Club. The others who have been not able to join, but always join in other sessions. Probably you see them next one. So that's from Damaris. Myself, on behalf of Blue Concepts Africa, I know I saw my colleague who was helping to make sure if I drop things also flow. That is Mary Njenga, who is also a key in business development and also training executive. Mary, I don't know whether you're there, but I appreciate you for being along and directing me on certain aspects as we moved on. And for those who are still asking me what else do we do there, we have it. You'll find it in our website. We are very robust in supporting corporates and as well on personal development and working with the young people. So thanks very much. I look forward to Saturday's session. Look out for the post and direction as we move on board to see how we can transcend from just knowledge to doing. So thanks, have a good day. And at this point is where I encourage people just to unmute at this point only and say goodbye. From Damaris, ciao. See you on Saturday. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good weekend.